Hello and welcome to my channel in a nutshell. Today I will talk to you about Lucia Joyce. I have already done so in a video in Italian. This is the English version and hopefully an enriched one, because I've been trying to improve my videos by adding some images to them. But who was Lucia Joyce, and how come a beautiful and talented creature as she was, instead of becoming a very renowned and successful artist, ended up dying in a mental institution? But let's start from the beginning. Lucia Anna Joyce was born in Trieste on the 26th of July 1907, when Trieste was the most important port of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And she was born at the Ospedale Maggiore here in Trieste, in the department destined to the poor and destitute. She was named after the patron saint Santa Lucia, protector of eyesight, and this was a bit ironic because the child was born with a squint in her left eye, which would be operated upon when she was an adult, but that never diminished her attractiveness. In fact, Lucia would grow up as a very pretty girl with dark curly hair and large blue eyes and a slender figure. She already had a brother, Giorgio, who had been born 2 years before her, on the 27th of July 1905, and both siblings were given Italian names. In fact, Trieste was mostly an Italian-speaking town, even though it was part of the Austrian Empire. Alongside Italian, many other languages were spoken, German of course, but also Slovenian, Serbian, Croatian, Albanian, and Trieste has always been a very rich multilinguistic reality. When she was born, her father was also in hospital, suffering from rheumatic fever and an infection to the eyes, conditions that tormented him for the rest of his life, and that were probably the consequence of a very serious venereal disease that he had probably caught in one of Dublin's brothels before leaving Ireland in 1904. Her mother, Nora Barnacle, was also poorly, from a psychological rather than a physical point of view. She was depressed, she was fed up. When they left hospital, both mother and child, they were given some money to support them. In fact, Nora and James lived a very precarious life in those first years in Trieste. They had settled in Trieste in 1905, after leaving Ireland together in 1904. Nora Barnacle was a chambermaid, and James, a very educated man, graduated from University College Dublin. But they fell in love and felt very much attracted to each other and left Ireland together. So they first lived a winter in Pola and then settled in Trieste in 1905. If the first years in the life of a child are very important, as they are, Lucia's ones can't have been very easy, because of course James Joyce, that later would become one of the most important writers of all times, at the time was just an impoverished English teacher from Ireland. He did earn some money by teaching at the Burley School here in Trieste, and also by giving private tuitions, but the problem was that as soon as he earned the money, he would spend it in drinking or otherwise. He had an important problem with drinking addiction. So the first years in Trieste can't have been easy, but in the end the Joyces managed to settle in what was a kind of bohemian lifestyle, a kind of roller coaster one. There were musical evenings where James would sing with his beautiful tenor voice and play the guitar or the piano. He had managed to buy one in installments, and they would go to the beach. So there was time also for merrymaking. As years went by, James, who of course was writing and trying to get published, was also involved with literary personalities here in Trieste. He would give lectures, write for the local magazine. In fact, when the First World War broke out, it was a good moment for him, particularly in 1915, when Italy joined the war. He had just been employed, finally, by the School for Commerce, the Revoltello School for Commerce, and he was very happy about it. He was holding a British passport in an enemy country, basically bordering with an ally country, which was Italy. So this situation was a little bit tricky. So they decided to leave for Zurich. By the time they left for Zurich in 1915, of course, Lucia was 8, so they had to start all over again. They stayed in Zurich for 4 years. They came back in 1919, when Trieste was Italian, was given back to Italy, and had changed a lot. They didn't recognize the cosmopolitan, lively port that they had lived in. After 9 months of sharing a very crowded flat in Via Sanità 2, Via Sanità 2, today Via Diaz, they left for Paris. Ezra Pound talked James into going to Paris. So in 1920, Lucia was 13, another place to settle in, another language to learn. For Lucia, Italian was always the language she felt most at ease with. In fact, people that met her when she was an adult said that she was speaking English with a guttural European accent. The years in Paris must have been very exciting. Of course, it was after the First World War, but Paris was at the center of a very lively artistic activity. There were many experts in Paris, people like Francis Scott Fitzgerald, Ezra Pound, Hemingway, Samuel Beckett, and many others. James Joyce was already famous because episodes from his masterpiece Ulysses had already been published on some magazines in England and America. In 1922, his masterpiece Ulysses, as I said, was published in volume for the first time, and so he became really a literary phenomenon and an acclaimed artist. And the whole family were surrounded by intellectuals and artists. In 1922, Lucia was 15. She started to take dance lessons. By 1928, she was a professional dancer. In 1929, she participated in the first international dance festival, where she was acclaimed. A critic wrote about her, she has inherited some of her father's genius. And she danced with many famous dancers, among them Raymond Duncan, the brother of Isadora Duncan. So the dance they were dancing was very pioneering, a modern, contemporary dance. In fact, a kind of art that looks very modern even today. And very famous is the picture in which she appears with a sparkling mermaid costume that she had made herself, designed and made. So it was a success. Unfortunately though, by the beginning of the 1930s she stopped dancing. We don't know exactly why. She probably found it too demanding and probably too challenging for her nervous system, which had always been a little bit unstable. The fact that she had stopped dancing and the fact that she started to have some huge disappointments in her love life, very famous is the one with Samuel Beckett, who, in order to get rid of her, told her, listen, I just joined your family and got to know you because I was interested in your father's work, not in you. And this was a big shock for Lucia, who was very much in love with Samuel Beckett. Her mental balance in 1932 becomes really worrying. James Joyce didn't want to believe it. He even allowed her to go to Ireland for a holiday, but once there she even lit a fire in the sitting room of the house where she was staying, at her cousin's house. She tried to unbutton the trousers of male visitors. She finally disappeared and lived homeless in Dublin for 1 week. When she came back, it was clear that the situation was very serious. There was also this incident of Lucia throwing a wooden chair against Nora in order to hurt her. The two women always had a very controversial relationship. They were probably both competing for Jimmy's love. James even wrote in some notes that gave to one of Lucia's psychoanalysts, Nora has always been jealous about Lucia. This father-daughter relationship was very close, but maybe bordering on incest in a way. Maybe it was too close. For some it was kind of disturbing. Maybe not from a physical point of view, rather from a psychological one. But still, the two were very close, and James always thought that the daughter could be cured, unlike Giorgio, who always thought that she was incurable. From 1932 to 1935, she divided her time between clinics and home. In 1934, she became Carl Gustav Jung's patient, but Jung didn't succeed. He didn't manage to establish a therapeutic relationship with her. The problem for Jung was that Lucia was entrapped in her father's psyche. According to James Joyce, also they were kind of submerged in the same water. This is what Joyce told Jung. But when he said so, Jung replied, yes, but in those waters, you, James, you managed to swim, whereas she drowns. He made all possible efforts in order to take Lucia with him, and Nora and Giorgio, but it was impossible. So they arrive in Zurich on the 17th of December 1940 without Lucia, with the idea of bringing her to Zurich afterwards, but unfortunately James was already very poorly. He had a very bad stomachache, or at least he thought he was suffering from stomachache. In fact, in the end, he underwent surgery, and they found out he had perforated ulcer. At first, he seemed to have pulled through, but eventually he went into a coma and died on the 13th of January 1941. After his father's death, no one from the family would go visit her. James used to go every week. Now Nora stops the visit. Giorgio doesn't allow his mother to visit. He himself would visit Lucia only once in 1967, and very briefly. In 1951, Lucia was then moved from France to England, to a lunatic asylum in Northampton, where only friends and acquaintances go visit her from time to time. Samuel Beckett always kept in touch and even supported her stay in Northampton. Apparently, he always had Lucia's picture, the one with the mermaid costume on, by his side. Nora died in 1951. Giorgio died in 1976. The one who lived longer is Lucia, who died in Northampton in 1882 at the age of 75. Even in death, she's separated from her family, because her grave is in a cemetery in Northampton, whereas James, Nora and Giorgio rest together in a cemetery in Zurich. So, this is the end of this tragic story of a beautiful and talented girl, daughter of a genius, lover of another genius, patient of yet another genius, who was herself a very talented artist, and who instead spent most of her life in mental institutions and even died in one of them. It's tragically ironic that Lucia was born in Trieste, the city that in 1970s would become, thanks to Franco Basaglia, the first place in the world that dismantled psychiatric hospitals and restored dignity to the mentally ill, who, like Lucia and many others, had been misunderstood, mistreated and abandoned. Thank you for watching.